Kendall is back, baby! After that incredible, amazing shock twist that ended Season 2, Season 3 of Succession starts off with a crazy bang. Kendall is back. His mannerisms, his voice, just the way he was in Season 1, he's back. He's not under his dad's shadow anymore. He's not under his thumb. He's not the broken, wounded animal that we saw in Season 2. He's kind of taking control again, and he's firing at all cylinders, and we're kind of back to Season 1, the origins of Succession, with its Logan Big Papa Daddy versus Kendall. You know, the eldest son, don't tell Con anyone, but you know, the eldest son who's vying for the business, who was gonna have it, and then Logan's like, no, you suck, you don't have the killer instinct. And this season starts off with him having that killer instinct. He's going for him, and he's taking that kind of woke angle where he's like, my dad's the evilest man in the world, he's a big megalomaniac, media empire guy, he loves Nazis and all that stuff, and he's going for him, and he's going for him hard. And the first half of the season is so exciting. It's so fun to see Kendall kind of back where he was originally and kind of coming full circle. And then when we start getting to the latter half of the season, as it all crumbles and falls apart, it's so tragic. It's so heartbreaking. Season 1 went through that same arc where he's up and up and up, and he's building and building. And then when he finally goes for that, you know, that stab in the neck to kill his dad's like, my next mate of armor, you can't get through. I'm immortal. I own this world that we are living in. You can't stop me. He's unstoppable, and he proves it once again. And as Kendall starts to crumble, I like that he didn't just kind of fall back onto drugs like in Season 1, where he relapses and starts hanging out with all those meth heads and just going crazy kind of on the drugs angle, which then led to Season 1's tragic ending. But this time, he just kind of crumbles. He just breaks. And it all kind of comes to a head at the birthday party. His big elaborate birthday party. That birthday party is absolutely insane. It's so over the top. It's so overblown. It's so crazy. And it's so kind of tragic and insane the way he's scrambling through all the presents, looking for his kid's present that he's lost in just a sea of presents from people he doesn't care about. It's all optics. It's all, look at me, using Succession words. Optics! It's all how people see. Oh, also, I don't think I've said this in my other reviews, but the way they talk, the lingo, the business political lingo that they're just spouting at each other. They're always just like saying this thing and saying this, and it kind of reminds me of when I watched The West Wing, a political show just about the West Wing, and there'd be so many scenes in that, and the same as this, well, that's a bit more political. This is still political, but it's got more of a business angle to it. But two characters would be sparring and saying words at each other, and they'd be like, ba 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 ba, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. And the other character would be like, well, that means ba 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 ba. And you're like, I don't technically understand. Like, if someone said, what does that mean in terms of a business strategy or whatever, I'd be like, well, I don't actually understand the minutiae of it. But because the acting and writing is so spot on, you kind of understand where everyone's coming from. Like, someone starts here, the other one's here, and then by the end of the scene, they're here, or here, or here, and you just understand the power dynamics of how everything's working, how everyone's playing against each other, who's on whose side, who's pretending to be on whose side, who kind of, you know, just from a little glance someone would give, you're like, oh, okay, no, what they just said is really bad. Like, it sounded kind of bad, but now it's really bad because Roman just kind of did a little, you know, and all that kind of stuff throughout the whole season and the other two seasons. It's just spot on. It's so engaging, so enthralling. I love seeing kind of this big high business. There's so much stake. There's so much at stake. There's so much going on. The money numbers are so high. It's so extreme. It's so scary. I think that kind of comes to a head in that episode where all they're sitting around and, you know, Tom goes off to speak with Kendall. And then he goes, Kendall, do you even know what they're doing back there? They're all sitting around deciding who's going to be the next president. And that whole sequence of them kind of deciding who's going to be the next president, who they're going to push forward, exceptional, horrifying, amazing stuff. Absolutely loved it. Speaking of presidents, this season brings back Season 1's whole thing where Logan might be getting dementia and getting old and kind of losing grip on reality and everything and not being able to be the top big dog, big man that he is. Season 2 completely dropped it, but at first I was kind of like, that kind of annoyed me in Season 2. I'm like, they didn't even really mention it. It feels like they forgot about it, and they're like, we'll save that for the final season. But then when it kind of came back up and suddenly he was like losing his bearings and he was just totally unusable. He didn't know how to, like, he couldn't say anything, and they had to kind of push him out of the room and talk to the president on the phone, and they were all sitting around freaking out about it. It suddenly became so much more scary and real. And it was just like, oh man, it can just happen. It can just suddenly happen And they're all screwed. Like, they don't know when it's going to happen. It's just this ticking time bomb. And now it doesn't feel so much like, oh, well, I'll just wait until they announce it's the final season. Then I can start worrying about that. It's like, no, this could just happen at any point in any conversation. He could just suddenly become, like, not all there. And it was really, really great performing. Brian Cox is so like, fuck off. I'm the big man. Fuck off. You know, well, it's mostly him saying fuck off. But there's some really, really great acting. I mean, no, it's exceptional acting. But he's almost one note with his kind of like, oh, I'm in charge. Ooh. And so to see him kind of crumble back into that season 1, like not being all there. And then as he's kind of coming back and he's like, I could have done better. They're like, explain how you would have done better. And he's like, I would have figured it out. And he's like coming back to full Logan. Exceptional acting. Like how he's able to make the most evil. His son even says like, I love you, Dad, but you're evil. You're evil. And he is. But how you can get sympathy from him, it's just exceptional stuff. The highlight this season for me was seeing Kendall kind of come back into it and him sparring against the family, but particularly against him with Siobhan and Roman. I think their kind of dynamic, the three of them, and the way it kind of plays out throughout the season, then kind of heads up into that big finale. Just exceptional stuff. I love how Siobhan is kind of fully deep dived into their kind of business side of everything, the way she's trying to get, she's trying to find her way in, but she keeps getting shut out, and it's so like frustrating for her and us as the audience, as she kind of at points seems like the most kind of, the one that should kind of be there, but then you're like, wait, no, but she has no experience. She's really up herself. Roman, completely incapable, completely ridiculous, but then at times we'll do like a little deal and you're like, oh man, this guy knows what's going on. And I love how they're kind of tiptoeing with all the characters, where one episode I'll be like, all right, the succession, it should go to Roman, it should go to Ken, it should go to Siobhan. Not Con. I'm sorry, Con. But I love that kind of up and down roller coaster of characters' emotions and how I feel about the characters. There's so many times where I'm like, oh God, I cannot stand Roman anymore. I mean, they're all awful people, but then when, kind of you reset, you kind of what's acceptable for this family, you kind of, I don't know, but even still then, there are points where I'm like, I cannot stand Roman. He's just too much. And then he'll get like a little bit of like heart and emotion back in where I'm like, oh, I don't know, he's all right. And then the same with Siobhan and Ken. Ken particularly this season, like in season 1, I was like, oh, Ken, take down Logan. This is sick. But then I'm like, Ken's kind of losing his mind this season. Like, even when he's doing all this big, like, I'm for the greater good, I'm for women and all this stuff, the sexual assault, it's no good, all the cover-ups, no. But the way he's going about it, the way he's kind of inflating his own self-worth and this kind of egotistical maniac, he's just becoming this crazy man. And you can see him just losing it. Like, as it builds and builds and builds, he's just losing his mind. And the moment where he starts kind of realizing maybe I've gone too far is when he's about to do the big Christ thingy, so many metaphors, all this thing at his birthday party. And he's like, this is all crazy. None of this makes any sense. What am I doing? And he gets out of there because he's starting to have that breakdown. All his assistants are like, oh, jeez, thank God. Because they can't say no to him. And he's just completely lost his mind. It's quite tragic. There's some like really cringy moments of him being like, bah, 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 bah. And you're like, oh, Ken, I want to be on your side, but you're making it really difficult. Tom and Greg are once again my favorites, stands out to the show and this season. Greg this year goes on an insane subplot where he's trying to sue Greenpeace, and it's spectacular. So many times in this show, the drama kind of starts weighing me down. I'm like, that's so intense. Oh my God, is this even the satirical comedy I thought it was? And then Tom and Greg will come bursting onto the scene with just insane antics, and I love it. Tom particularly, I just find something so charming, so kind of lovable about him. He's got this kind of big, goofy, nervous kind of like, just this charm. The actor just kind of oozes a sympathy that I don't think any of the other characters do. Even when, like, say, Roman, I'm feeling sympathetic. And then that really starts coming to a head with him and Siobhan. Like, throughout the whole series, every time Siobhan's doing a business thing, and she's like, I want to be in the business. And they're like, you can't be in the business. I love all of that. I love it so much. But anytime she's with Tom, I find her almost intolerably unlikable. She's so mean to him. There's such a disdain towards him at times. And in season 1, it was with the cheating. Then with the big finale where she's like, we should have an open relationship. On your wedding night, Siobhan? What the hell? And it kind of keeps simmering away in season 2. Then it comes out with Tom being like, on my wedding night? What the hell? Exactly, Tom. Don't stand for this. But he still loves her. And then this season, everything seems to be fine because there's so much Kendall action going on. They don't have time to have their own little thing going on. But that dirty talk sex scene they have where she's all like, talk dirty to me. And he's like, no, you talk dirty to me. And she just flat out, right to his face, is like, you love me, but I don't love you. I'm way out of your league, but you still want me. Horrific. I just felt sick. Like, her performance, it's like she kind of was like, oh, I can pretend to be saying something in dirty talk, but I'm just going to flat out tell him the truth. And it's just horrific, especially when Roman kind of calls her on when Tom is like not going to go to prison anymore, which is the most hurrah moment of the series, with Tom doing the amazing, like, could you just move aside? Greg, and he just smashes the room apart, just screaming with joy. The fact that they didn't have to go to prison, the fact that Tom didn't have to betray his family and side with Ken, it was all glorious. It was so great. I didn't want to see Tom disappear to prison or any of that stuff. So glorious, so amazing, such a fist bump moment. And then to realize, hey, did Siobhan want him to go to prison? She'll never say that. But I think Roman was totally on the money. Because Siobhan, in regards to Tom, is spiteful and evil, and I loathe her. Every single scene, and this kind of just, it builds and builds to that moment where she tells him the truth. Well, I don't know why I did that. The truth. It felt like the truth. The character felt like she'd opened up and just said it, and was using it as a disguise, being very manipulative. And then when Tom calls her on it in the morning, he's like, I've got afterburn. I feel sick about this. Why'd you say that? And she's like, oh, you're being a bit manipulative. And how dare you say the word manipulative? Siobhan, you monster. Just really didn't like it. And then when she's like, oh yeah, well, we'll get pregnant. Oh, we'll freeze some eggs. We'll freeze some stuff. It's 10 years down the line. 10 years. 10 years is far too long. Tom is very right when he says that's 2.5 Olympics. Hilarious and a tragic line. It's like, it's far too long. Everything about their relationship just has put me on edge for so long because I love Tom so much. Even though in the first episode he was not my favorite at all, he's now become easily my favorite. The actor just has this feeling about him that I can't help just side on his side, and he's got some of the funniest lines. His subplot has been his plot has been really interesting the whole way through. I love the way he's kind of, because he's not one of the family, the blood family, but he's still right there as a married person into the family. I just find all of that really, really fascinating. And he's always kind of been the most like, he can go. Like if someone gets cut from this and thrown to the dogs, I feel like it's most likely to be him at any point, because I feel like the main three, or I guess with Con, 4 children, they're not going anywhere, because that final season will be, who's the real succession right now, The absolute moment of heartbreak and devastation when he's just like, maybe I should stop just going yeah, you're right. Maybe I should trust the fact and the truth of when you speak directly to my face in our most intimate moment that you don't love me. That line broke me. Just oh my God, Tom, he's so right. She doesn't love him. And it's just heartbreaking. It's devastating. It hurts me. And then we get up to the big final twist reveal. The three kids, they're all back together. They're all smug. They're all like, yes. We can do this. Screw dad. Screw dad. We should tell dad his classic catchphrase, fuck off. And it's it's such a glorious moment where they all team up. They're all going together to go to that moment to be like, Dad, you can't do this because business things and words and stuff. You all saw it. You know what I'm talking about. And when they get there and suddenly Logan's like, no. And he puts the mum on the phone. As soon as that happens, I'm like, well, of course Logan can't lose. Logan loses, the show is done. It's that's the whole show. Which kid's going to overtake their dad? That's the end game. So it can't happen, but you still feel like it's definitely going to happen. And then Siobhan being like, who the hell told dad to figure something out before he arrived? Who told him? And then we get almost that Godfather moment where you see through the door and Logan just pats Tom on the shoulder and Tom comes in being like, what happened? What happened? Tom, you've absolutely dogged the 3 children who I totally in that moment wanted to take over Logan. But you know what? Siobhan bloody deserves that. Kendall and Roman, absolutely not. Collateral damage, that's just what happens. Siobhan, you deserve that. I'm so happy Tom completely dogged her. And he doesn't even say anything. He's like, oh, what happened? Oh, what happened? And the season ends with Siobhan just and Tom's just there on her shoulder being like, I've done this. Cannot wait for their breakup, just tearing apart relationship. It's going to be so satisfying because screw Siobhan. How dare she say that to Tom in their dirty talk moment. Just all of that made me sick to my stomach. There's something about how she acted and just the way she's just smug and arrogant in those moments. And then I completely forget when she's doing all the political stuff and everything. Because that's how this show can do it. They can have one character do one thing in one moment and you're like, oh, I hate this person so much. But then when all the 3 kids are teaming up together, I'm like, yes, look at them go. They're going to take down Logan. And that's the beauty of a show where every single person is despicable and awful. You just hate everyone, but then you love people so much more than others, and the way it just bounces back and forth, I just find intoxicating. It's so fascinating. It's so brilliant. I think a key moment for me in terms of all of that, of being like, this is just so horrific and despicable, but it's so beautifully emotional, and like the way this family's dynamic, and the kids towards their father, and then like the kids towards each other, the sibling rivalries, and it all kind of comes to a head when they come out of the wedding, their mum's wedding to her new whatever the hell, a pile of porridge or whatever Roman calls it, amazing stuff. I love the fact that they're all sitting there and there's this beautiful Italian countryside, and he's just on a dirty, dirty road, and he just collapses. Kendall just breaks down, and he tells Siobhan and Roman that he killed a kid. And it's so amazing because the way he kind of just opens up, he's so raw. It's so powerful how raw and open he is to them. They're never like this to each other. I remember Roman saying something in one of the other seasons. I think when they're all on the boat at the end of season 2. He's like, are we going to be able to talk as normal siblings? And they're all like, oh, we're going to talk as... Oh, yeah, we'll share our emotions. And they're so rude about it. They're so callous to him. But in this moment, he's so broken. And they kind of come to him. And I think particularly Roman kind of showed the most humanity he's shown in the entire series. And I found it amazing. And then when you realize how he's showing that emotion, where he's like, oh, I mean, you say you killed him, but it really I feel like he swerved the car, you said, so I don't know, you didn't really kill him. Oh, I think it was all the water that killed him. Oh, you tried to save him a couple of times? I would have been right out of there. And the way he's kind of justifying it all in this really perverse, demented way, but he's really just trying to be there for his brother in the only way Roman can. And I found that really heartwarming in this insane, perverse way. I just found it a beautiful moment of two brothers reconciling, when all season Roman's like, oh yeah, I'll come and have a deal with you, Kendall, in the first few episodes. No, I'm here, I'm spying for Dad, because I'm always on Dad's side. And having that beautiful emotional moment leading to them all teaming up to fight Logan. It's just... I don't know, I found it such a satisfying conclusion to the arc of the siblings all fighting against each other all season, coming together, the trinity of kids. Sorry, Con, I don't know what's going on with Con. The fact that he's like, as Roman says, you've grinded her down, and she said yes to the marriage. It's like, haha, super cringe, super weird, hated all that. I hate that moment where she's like, oh yeah, I feel sorry for you in this moment, so I'll say yes. And then she gets to the car and she's like, ha ha, and you get this tiny glint in her eye, just being like, oh. This season, we get some of the best vistas, the best scenery shots, just incredible stuff. All that stuff in Italy. And pretty much every time they go outside of America, it is so gorgeous. I love how grand and rich and just insanely just beautiful it all is. That vista that Alexander Skarsgård's character lives in, just gorgeous. It's so beautiful to like look at, but then there's this kind of ironic kind of twist in it all where it's like, he's just like, oh yeah, it's fine. Oh yeah, I mean, some of my bed isn't very good, so I sleep on the floor. And it's like, he's so rich. It's all so grand and rich. He can't even appreciate it when you're sitting there like saliva dripping from your face because it's just such a gorgeous vista. And he's just like, whatever. Terrifying kind of look at this uber rich guy. Also, just in terms of like the side cameos of all the stakeholders and rich crazy people we get this season, we get Adrian Brody and then we get Alexander Skarsgård, and those two cameos for the episodes they're in, exceptional. They give such good performances. I love the fact they found big names. It really kind of gave a little bit of weight to these huge, overdrawn, big rich characters that were just so kind of, I don't know, stuck in their own worlds, and they just felt like the people they were trying to present and be in the show. I really liked those cameos. Just really great performances from both of them, especially Alexander Skarsgård. His performance, like, I don't know, he's the tallest, sexiest, most chiseled man you'll ever see in your life. But in this, he's like hunched over playing video games. He hates his glorious, beautiful house. There's just something so bizarre about him. And it felt like, I mean, he's still chiseled, beautiful, and tall as like a building, but it felt like such a different character for him to be playing. And I really liked that. But maybe it was just because every single scene he's in, which is in the most gorgeous, beautiful place in Italy I've ever seen in my life. It was so gorgeous. I also love how just grand and epic and orchestral and classical the music feels. It's just so breathtaking. I love it so much. I love how each season kind of crescendos in this big epic event. There's a wedding, it's a birthday, there's another wedding, and it's just so grand, it's so overdrawn and overblown and so expensive, it's just money dripping everywhere. Just love it. It kind of speaks to the worlds they live in, where they're like at a wedding and it's the biggest, most expensive thing you ever see, but they're sitting there arguing and politicizing and getting on the phone and being like, the deal's being made without us, we're gonna make our own deal, and just going crazy with it all. Love it. I love it so much. I can't believe there's no more for me to watch. I've binged this all in like a week. It's just... oh, I love it so much. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I'd love to know what people think of Season 3 of Succession.